Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching Sword Art Online Progressive Aria of a Starless Night. This is the first in a series of films that's based on the Reki Kawahara light novel series of the same name. That's basically an expanded version of the Aincrad arc that started SAO all those years ago. Now, for people who don't know, Sword Art Online was one of the most popular anime of the early 2010s, and many people attribute Sword Art Online to be the series that launched the popularity of isekai, as well as Trapped in a Game anime, and what caused several light novel adaptations to be greenlit for animes by the dozens, to the point where its effect is still being felt to this very day. However, this has also caused Sword Art Online to be a bit of a divisive series, with some people loving the series and all of its movies and subsequent seasons, and some who have made a living by bashing it to death, such as Jeff Thu, aka Mother's Basement. I personally see the strengths and weaknesses of the original series, but I also see that the original author, Reki Kawahara, legitimately is trying to improve his writing, and I think he has been succeeding bit by bit with every new series of SAO that we've gotten. And with this returning to the first arc of SAO, the one that made the series a household name, it focuses more on Asuna, the main female protagonist, and adds a new character to the series who actually adds a lot to the narrative. Let's get to the story, shall we? Like I said, this basically takes us all the way back to the beginning of the SAO timeline with the launching of the SAO video game by Akihiko Kayaba, and Asuna happens to use her brother's nerve gear in order to get into the game become friends with this girl named Mito. Mito is a very skilled gamer, and she happens to also be a top student at her school. But Mito also happens to role-play a male character inside of SAO, so Asuna initially doesn't realize who she is at first. But when we see Akihiko Kaiba locking everyone in the game and telling everyone if you die in the game, you die in real life, Mito and Asuna have to survive in this world and also find a way to get out by going through all 100 floors of of the Aincrad castle in order to face the final boss at the 100th floor. But weeks go by and no one has even made it past the first boss, so it's going to be a long, long journey. But that's all I'll say about the story. Now, if you've seen the original SAO, the plot is going to be very familiar, to the point where several scenes from the original series are basically reanimated in this new animation style that basically resembles more of ordinal scale and alicization than it does the original series animation. That's not to say the original animation is bad for the series, but it's clear that this was the right way to go, as the backgrounds as well as the character animation are absolutely beautiful. Really expressive, really getting you to see what these characters are thinking and how they feel, on top of the fact that they just make the action scenes look buttery smooth. That's especially the case when it comes to any of the big action scenes in the game itself, and especially the final fight against the Kobold Lord. Now, when it comes to the characters, Asuna gets a lot more focus here than she did in the original season of SAO, and I like the fact that she's developed a bit more. Granted, she's still skilled at the game, but she actually has to build herself up to get to that point, because when she starts with the game, she kind of sucks at it. But that's to be expected from someone who just got into SAO. And since Mito acts as a bit of a mentor to her, we get to see both their friendship blossoming, and we get to see Asuna's skill improving throughout the first half of the film. To the point where when Kirito does show up for the second half, he feels ultimately earned, and despite him having a lot of criticism as a generic light novel hero in the first series, some of that criticism is, for the most part, justified, but I like how he's used in the film here. He's more of a secondary protagonist. He generally is more supportive and more of a good friend type of character rather than a wish fulfillment hero. And even though he still has his moments where he gets to, take down the bosses and save Asuna a couple of times, it doesn't feel like total wish fulfillment this time. It just feels like something his character would do. Plus, I just enjoy Yoshitsugu Matsuoka's voice acting as the character. As far as Mito goes, like I said, she's more of a mentor character, but she also happens to be really good at Tekken 7, which is probably where they got the product placement money for this film. Joking aside, Mito is legitimately pretty entertaining, and I would appreciate if we get to see more of her past this first film, especially because her her fighting style with the scythe is really cool, and because I think she also has a very good voice performance, both for her normal voice and for the disguised male voice that she has. On top of that, it's really interesting to see some scenes and compare them to the original anime series to let you know how much they've been upgraded for this new adventure. And when you see how some scenes have been cut out of this version and new ones have been added to get us to like Kirito and Asuna a bit more, and to build up the danger of the world a bit more effectively. You even get to see Klein, Agil, and a few other cameos for supporting characters from the original series. Granted, there are some things that I still don't like. The whole beater word that they use to describe Kirito at the end of the film, it's still as cringeworthy here as it was in the original film. There still are a few scenes that do feel like they're overwrought when it comes to their lurid type of horror. And there are a few plot elements that I feel could have been rewritten a bit better. But for the most part, I do think it is ultimately a pretty good update on the original story. So, if you already hate SAO, you're not going to like this at all, but if you're a fan of the series, I do think it's the version I'd recommend when it comes to experiencing the Aincrad arc. And since we have another film coming next year, I hope we eventually get to cover all 100 floors, even if it takes the rest of Reki Kawahara's life to get to that point. I mean, if he wants to go through every floor individually. So, speaking as a whole, I give Sword Art Online Progressive, Aria of a Starless Night, an 8 out of 10. See you next time.